In the last video with the high compression turbo Miata, we put on a big turbo and took it to the dyno. Unfortunately, we ran into issues with the stock ignition system and couldn't make more than 300 wheel horsepower without blowing out the spark. During this dyno session, we also noticed that our fuel system was getting close to maxing out, and so
here we have all of the parts to fix the spark blowout and to upgrade our fuel system to be able to keep up with the extra boost. The fuel system from Radium, mostly gonna be in the next video. The highlight of this one is our coil unplug kit. This is a direct bolt-on coil unplug kit using Toyota ignition coils from Hummelink Modifications. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. We have our 4 ignition coils, the adapter bracket that will make it fit in the valve cover, the plug-and-play wiring harness, and some bolts. But before we can install any of that, we have to remove the old stuff. And so you can see that the old ignition system is out, the wires, the coil packs. The last thing we have to do is go ahead and remove this. But I got a little carried away. No intercooler, no radiator, no intercool piping, the timing belt's off, the crank pulley's off. What on earth is going on? It had a front main seal leak. I figured now would be a good time to fix that. But the pulley was a little rusted on. So in order to get the pulley off, I had to use a pulley puller. Well, in order to fit a pulley puller, I had to remove the radiator and the sway bar. Well, in order to remove the radiator and the sway bar, I had to remove the intercooler. In order to remove the intercooler, I had to remove the top display tray. In order to remove that too, I also had to remove the hood latch. It's like, it is all done. And I can literally wiggle around the front main seal with my hands. So that should be easy to remove. Yay! All right, we got the new main seal in, the pulley back on, time belt back on, everything torqued back to spec and ready to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and start on the ignition system. The great part about this is that it is super easy. After you have removed the old stuff, you bolt the adapter bracket on, and then the coil packs just slot right onto the spark plugs and bolt onto the adapter bracket. After that, you've got the wiring harness, which just plugs into the coil packs, and then goes and runs around to the igniter. Now, you don't want to plug it into the igniter yet because there's some tuning differences that you want to make before you power everything up. Speaking of which, this system can be used with a stock ECU. It's possible, but it's not ideal. With a stock ECU, since you can't change the dwell times for the coil packs, you will burn through the coil packs faster. So, possible, not ideal, but yeah. Now that we have them in, I'm gonna go ahead and modify the dwell times. What is ignition dwell?
Dwell time is measured in the number of degrees of the distributor's rotation through which the contacts of the points are closed. This is also known as saturation time, or the time when the coil is producing a strong magnetic field in the primary side of the coil.
I didn't understand the word I just said, but I know I have to change it, so it's time for the laptop. Tuner Studio. Ignition settings, ignition options, wheel decoder, cranking dwell, nominal dwell, so all that is what we have to change. 3.5 millisecond cranking dwell, nominal dwell, 2.4 milliseconds. Now with the dwell time changed, you're ready to plug it in and test it, but there is a warning for Megasquirt users. It reads as follows. Unfortunately, Megasquirt ECUs tend to have issues with wrong ignition setting for these coils. Normally these coils won't need any other setup changes besides setting up dwell times. Although some Megasquirts might be right, the coil packs can get damaged on other Megasquirt ECUs, especially the DIY versions. Take these steps to avoid damaging your coils. Never load new software or maps with the coils plugged in. B, check spark output output. This has to be set at going low. Check if the coils get hot with the ignition turned on. If so, turn off the ignition and change that setting. So I just changed it to going low, and now we're gonna test it. You're just gonna feel the coils and see if they get hot. Yeah. So I plug it in.
Wanna say?
Ooh.
Ooh, yeah, they're getting there. You wanna turn that switch off?
Yeah, go ahead and turn it off. Okay, so sure enough, my coils were starting to get hot. So I guess I'm gonna change that setting. Okay, we test again. I think we're fine.
Turn it off.
Very nice. All right, well, now I have to reassemble it before we can actually start it and see if it runs. Probably should have done that first, oh well. We are ready to test the ignition system after one more thing, coolant. But we're not putting any old coolant in Molly. We are putting in Mishimoto's liquid chill. Mishimoto has had their liquid chill for a while, but they just redid it, and now they have different colors for every type of vehicle. They have universal, which is what this is. I just run universal and everything. But now they have purple, pink/red, orange, and blue for every possible manufacturer. And for all of those colors, comes in a pre-diluted gallon. This stuff is rated to last 150,000 miles. It's formulated to provide optimal heat transfer, outstanding freeze protection, and unparalleled lubrication. Freezing down to -32 degrees Fahrenheit and boiling up to 265 degrees Fahrenheit. So much better than normal water and much better than a lot of other coolants. And I'm super happy to be able to be running it in Molly and the drift truck and all the future projects. All right, we are ready to start it with the new ignition system, hopefully the fixed front main seal and the fixed pulley. You know, another little but very important thing I did. I took out my Mishimoto cooler thermostat. This thing was great for track days, helping it stay cool, but for driving around, especially when it's even remotely cool out, something about the coolant reroute allows coolant to go through the system still, even with a thermostat. And so what would happen, I'd let the car warm up, you know, the gauge would get all the way up to hot, and then I would start driving it. And if I was cruising for a long time, or not even a long time, for a few minutes, I could just watch the coolant gauge go back down to cold, and it would go all the way back to full cold, which I don't know what that actually was temperature-wise, but I didn't like it. You know, it's not good to be running your engine at a colder temperature than it should. And when you're beating it on the track in the summer, cold thermostat good, not when you're street driving it. Oh yeah, boy. Ignition system definitely working good. It's 205 coolant temp. Why is it still going up? 206, 207, sir. 208, oh God, what's going on? The fan is cold. I think we got a bubble somewhere. We definitely have a bubble somewhere. I never had issues bleeding this, but it's looking like might be having some issues. Yeah, the thermostat's not opening. This is ice cold. Bruh, what? You know that thing I said about replacing the thermostat? Out of all the issues we could have, it's just the thermostat not opening. What the hell? My only thought is that the jiggle valve on the thermostat is not on the top, so we're gonna let it cool off overnight. Tomorrow we'll come try to rotate the thermostat housing without leaking any coolant. So I don't wanna lose this liquid chill. That's the thermostat housing back there because of the coolant reroute. Fingers crossed that fixes it. Obviously it's the next day. The car's been idling for probably about 20 minutes. It reaches operating temperature, goes back down. I did two things. Number one, I rotated the thermostat. I don't think that did anything because I tried it and it was still overheating. But the second thing I did, well, here's the thing. I was noticing that the thermostat just wasn't getting hot enough because there's so much water in the system with the reroute, and the thermostat's pretty far away from the engine. So if there's no flow throughout the system, the thermostat is not gonna get hot enough. Unless you hit it with a torch. So that's what I did. That's the thermostat housing down there, and I just went beep for a minute or two. It opened up, and it's working so far. As you heard, the fans just kicked on. Coolant temp at 203, 204, and then it starts going down. Honestly, I'd like to get a thermostat somewhere in the middle of the two temperatures that I have. The other one was 160 degrees. This is a 200 degree one. And the problem with that is that by the time the thermostat's 200 degrees, the engine's at like 210, which isn't overheating, but especially if you're beating on it, it's not gonna give you much room for error. So maybe like a 180, 185 thermostat would be perfect. I'll look on Rock Auto. Fun fact, Rock Auto, you know, they sell thermostats, obviously. They have lots of different options, and they usually list what temperature each one is. Yeah, so look, 180 degree, 195, 195, 180, 192, well, that could be good. 180, 192. So yeah, I think 180 is probably what we're gonna go with, but for now, this works at least. Considering it's winter, I'm not too worried about it overheating. All right, let's drive it. Let's see how these coil packs feel, eh? Next thing I want to do this thing, get rid of these dang harnesses, bro. So the nice thing about upgrading your ignition system is that it's not just supposed to provide a stronger spark so you can make more boost. It's supposed to help with drivability too, because all around it's providing a better spark, so your idle should be smoother, should be more responsive. Feels good so far. Now, obviously, there were a lot of different choices I could have gone with for this ignition system. It's common to use LS coils. It's common to use R8, Volkswagen coils. And there's pros and cons to each setup. LS coils have the strongest spark, but they're kind of ugly. They're ugly because you have to have this big old adapter bracket and coils hanging off the valve cover. It's not a pretty look. The Volkswagen coils were a good option, but I couldn't find a plug-and-play kit for the 1.6 setup. I would have had to wire it up, which, not the end of the world, but plug-and-play is nicer. I do believe the Toyota coils are the least powerful out of those three options, but they do look awesome. They're plug-and-play, and they are still plenty powerful for any power level that I'm ever going to be shooting for. A little bit of a misfire there. Damn, spinning third. Holy shit! God damn! Flat foot shifting's working. Oh man. That is the most it's ever spun. Oh, and then it just shut off. Did I just rod knock my engine? I think I did. Sounds like a rod knock. Fuck me, bro. Either lifter's stuck or my engine's toast. Either way, I'm gonna try to make it back as soon as I can. Well, guess we're not doing the fuel system. Time to figure out, did I just give my car a rod knock? You know, I've never rod knocked a car. Never done it. Guess there's a first time for everything.